"It's time to streamline management," my boss announced, his voice cutting through the conference room like a blade meant to separate the important from the disposable. I sat at the far end of the table, spine straight, hands folded, doing everything I could to remain unreadable. My name is Freya Dalton, and for years I have learned that silence often reveals more than speaking ever will. My manager leaned forward, tapping her pen against her notepad. "Starting with unnecessary staff," she added, her tone casual, almost cheerful, as if she were talking about tidying up a cluttered drawer instead of dismantling people's lives. Her eyes flicked toward me for only a second, but the message landed with the precision of a knife tip. I kept my expression calm, still, controlled. The room hummed with the kind of tension everyone feels but no one acknowledges. A few department leads shifted in their chairs. Someone cleared their throat. Nobody asked questions, because questioning meant painting a target on your own back. Then the consultant's phone rang. He apologized quietly, answered, and listened. His posture tightened. Color drained from his face as if someone had pulled a plug at the base of his neck. "I understand," he whispered. "Yes, I'll relay it." He lowered the phone slowly, eyes wide, darting from my boss to my manager to me. The parent company's owner just rejected all proposed changes, every part of the restructure. A thick silence fell over the room, confusion, irritation, a hint of fear. My boss muttered something under his breath. My manager sat frozen, pen hovering in midair, and every single person turned to look at me. I didn't flinch, I didn't smile, I didn't even blink. I simply met their stares with quiet steadiness, the kind that makes people wonder what they've missed. No one knew the truth yet. Not about the authority they had underestimated, not about the signature that could erase their entire plan. That truth was waiting for them, and it had begun long before this meeting, 48 hours earlier. The first thread of their careful scheme began to unravel. The story you're about to hear is a fictional work created by the writing team at Revenge AITA. It draws inspiration from the injustices many women face in the workplace: disrespect, favoritism, and age bias against midlife professionals. We tell this story to highlight the journey of a woman who rises, reclaims her worth, and refuses to let anyone define her value. This narrative is meant to inspire, heal, and remind you that self-respect is never something you ask permission for. All characters and events are purely illustrative, and just like that, the moment that changed everything pulled me back to where it began. 2 days earlier, before any of them realized what I was capable of, I stepped into another morning in Seattle, unaware that their plan to erase me was already in motion. 48 hours earlier, I walked into the consulting floor in downtown Seattle and slipped into my desk the same way I always did, quietly, efficiently, unnoticed. The office buzzed with its usual mixture of ambition and anxiety, but none of it paused for me. It never did. "Freya, did you get the memo?" one of the junior analysts asked without looking up from her screen. "What memo?" I kept my tone neutral. "Oh, right. It went to the leadership list." She stopped typing for the briefest moment, giving me a sympathetic half-smile. "Guess they forgot to add you again." They did not forget. They never forgot. It was easier to keep me out of the loop when my work could still be used without giving me credit. My manager, Talia Reeves, stepped out of her glass-walled office just then. "Morning, everyone. Quick reminder. Leadership wants updated projections by noon. Freya, make sure you polish the deck Marcus drafted." I looked up. "Marcus used the projections I built last week." Talia waved a hand dismissively. "Then all the more reason for you to clean them up. Marcus is presenting to senior leadership. He needs your support. Support. Always that word. Never partnership. Never authorship." At the desks behind me, 2 consultants whispered, "You think she knows about the restructure? Probably not. She's on the list." "Right, likely." Talia wants more assertive voices. I kept typing, breathing slowly. Not reacting was its own skill, one I had mastered over the years. When I handed the updated deck to Marcus, he grinned. "Perfect timing. You always save me." "You're welcome," I said. "You know, when the new org chart comes out," he added, lowering his voice, "maybe you'll land somewhere that fits your style." My style: quiet, steady, behind the scenes. Nothing wrong with that. I closed my laptop gently instead of snapping it. If that is what happens, I'll handle it. His smile said he already believed the decision was made. Inside, something shifted, small but undeniable. a quiet steel, rising. By the time the sun dipped behind the buildings, the rumors had formed their own gravity. Cuts were coming, names were floating, mine among them, and none of them understood the authority I already held beneath their polished hierarchy. 1 year before anyone tried to cut me out, I sat in a cramped conference room surrounded by people who pretended to understand the documents in front of them. Pages rustled, pens clicked, and executives nodded as if nodding counted as comprehension. Freya, the director of mergers and acquisitions, said, "You're the only analyst who reviews full contracts. We need you on the Rayburn transition team, my manager." Talia looked annoyed. "She already has a full workload." The director didn't blink. "She reads what the rest of you skim. We need accuracy more than convenience." Talia forced a smile. "Of course." For 3 months, I sat with attorneys, analysts, board representatives, and Rayburn Holdings officers, combing through integration terms while the rest of the leadership team signed summaries without hesitation. One afternoon, the Rayburn General Counsel slid a thin folder across the table. "We need an internal compliance owner for the new holding entity," he said. "Someone neutral, someone thorough." I opened the folder. "Owner designate." "It is not an executive title," he clarified. "It is a governance safeguard. You ensure structural compliance. You approve or deny changes that affect stability. Quiet work." A member of the Rayburn board added, "Your name will not appear on any public chart. This is not about visibility, it is about integrity." I nodded. "Why me? You read every line," he replied. "That is rarer than it should be." Across the hall, I could hear my own leadership team laughing as they signed their packets without flipping past the first page. Even Talia skimmed, initialed, and joked about legal fluff, but the designation in that folder meant something entirely different. It placed final authority over structural changes, hiring, firing, reorganizations in my hands. Not one person in my office realized it. They had all signed the same documents. None of them had actually read them, and my invisibility made the oversight complete. By Friday afternoon, the air in the office felt sharp enough to cut skin. Talia sent a message labeled Urgent Alignment Session, and everyone from our division filed into a conference room that suddenly seemed too small. My boss stood near the screen. "We will walk through the restructuring plan," he announced, already clicking through the slides. "These changes position us for long-term efficiency." Slide 1 showed Talia promoted to senior manager. Slide 2 displayed consulting fees, broken into harmless-looking segments, each one hiding inflated costs I recognized immediately. Slide 3 carried my name next to a role that had never existed before. Support liaison, no team, no scope, no path. Talia folded her hands. "This alignment lets high-impact contributors operate at their strongest. Not everyone fits our new direction." Her eyes skimmed over me before she shifted her gaze to Marcus, who nodded approvingly. I kept my voice steady. "When does this take effect?" "Monday morning," my boss replied. "Transition plans will be shared after the weekend." Around me, chairs creaked softly as colleagues shifted in discomfort. A few gave me quick, apologetic glances before dropping their eyes. No one spoke, no one challenged. The hierarchy in that room was too clear. Talia exhaled as if closing a chapter. "This is the right move. We need people who elevate the team." I opened my phone. My fingers didn't shake. I typed a single message to Rayburn's general counsel. "We need a Section 4.3 review. Immediate." The moment I pressed send, the tension in my chest dissolved into a cold, focused calm. My boss moved to the next slide. Talia continued outlining responsibilities I no longer held. Marcus chimed in with suggestions that sounded rehearsed. I stood quietly, letting their voices wash over me. When the meeting ended, people gathered their things. I slipped out unnoticed, the same way I always did. Only this time. My silence was not compliance. It was intention. Section 4.3 had been triggered, and its consequences were already in motion. By early Saturday morning, my phone buzzed with an email confirmation from Rayburn Holdings. My Section 4.3 request had been received. Nothing more, no explanation, no reassurance, just acknowledgement. At the Seattle office, meanwhile, the leadership team gathered without me. Marcus sent a group message summarizing their progress. Final announcement drafted. Monday rollout confirmed. I could imagine the tone in that room, eager, triumphant, certain they had already reshaped the company without resistance. Later that afternoon, I passed by a team call where the consultant spoke loudly through the speakerphone. The downsizing yields minimum 20% cost reduction, he said. Lean teams drive competitive edge. People will adapt or transition out, Talia replied. Transition as in severance, transition as in whatever the business requires. He said, the key is decisive action. I stopped walking. They saw me in the hallway. No one paused the conversation, no one softened their voices. In their minds, the decision was complete. By evening, my phone rang from an unknown number. I stepped outside into the cool air before answering. Ms. Dalton, a calm voice said. Richard Camden, Chief Counsel at Rayburn Holdings. I straightened instinctively. Yes, I am here. We received your Section 4.3 alert, he continued. Your oversight authority has been activated. The restructuring plan triggered multiple compliance concerns. I exhaled slowly. What happens now? We have begun our internal review, he said. You should expect escalation before Monday. There may be inquiries directed to your division. I understand, he paused. You did the right thing notifying us. Governance exists to prevent misuse of authority. When the call ended, I stood still, letting the words settle into something solid inside me. For years I had endured the quiet humiliations, dismissed input, stolen credit, whispered predictions about my replaceability. But now the structure they ignored was in motion. And this time, it was moving with my signature. When I stepped into the executive conference room that Monday morning, the tension in the air carried a different weight than usual. My boss stood near the front, rehearsing lines he believed would define the next phase of the company. Talia hovered beside him, smooth and composed, already assuming her new authority. Marcus scrolled through the slide deck, nodding proudly at the future he expected to own. I took my seat without speaking. My boss began exactly as he had planned. It is time to streamline management, he said. This restructure positions us for long-term. The consultant's phone rang. He frowned, checked the caller ID, and answered. Everyone's voices stopped. One look at his stiffened posture told me the review had already reached them. Yes, he said quietly, I understand. He swallowed, glanced at my boss, and tried again. All proposed changes. Another pause, a long one. Understood. He lowered the phone slowly, as if afraid of what would happen when he let go. The owner of the holding company refuses to authorize the restructure, he announced. My boss blinked hard. What owner? Who are they talking about? The consultant checked his tablet. His jaw tightened. It says here, Freya Dalton. Chairs shifted. Someone gasped. The silence cracked open like thin glass under pressure. Talia stared at me as if seeing a stranger. Marcus froze, blinking at the screen as though his promotion had just been erased in front of him. My boss pointed at me. This has to be a mistake. She is not, she cannot be. I met his outrage with calm I had earned over years of being underestimated. You built a plan without reading the governance rules. I said, I did. I straightened, letting the truth settle across the room. And no, this is not a mistake. Their expressions changed: fear, confusion, dawning realization as the structure they ignored finally surfaced. And every consequence they had set in motion was now turning back toward them. By Tuesday morning, Rayburn Holdings had moved faster than anyone in our office expected. An audit team appeared on our monitors in a video conference, while 2 compliance officers arrived on site, requesting access to files that had never been questioned before. Marcus hovered near his desk, pale. They want the bonus records, he whispered. Talia's voice shook. Which ones? The adjustments from last quarter, he muttered. The ones we processed under performance alignment. I listened quietly as the audit team projected their findings. One officer spoke evenly. We identified unauthorized bonus increases for Ms. Graharson, Ms. Reeves totaling nearly $20,000. Talia stiffened. Those were approved by leadership. Another officer responded. Leadership approval is insufficient without holding company authorization. Then came the consultant contract. The compliance manager adjusted his glasses. Your agreement states a rate inflated significantly above market standards. No justification is documented. My boss stepped forward. We acted in good faith. We needed rapid support. The business demanded it. A voice from the speaker interrupted Richard Camden. Calm and controlled. Good faith is not a substitute for governance. The structure exists to prevent unilateral decisions that compromise stability. The next slide hit harder. Email threads dated weeks before the restructure announcement where Talia and the consultant discussed eliminating my role before the review period even ended. My boss pointed at the screen. "This is being taken out of context," Richard responded. "Context is precisely what we are restoring." Talia turned to me then, her voice strained. "Freya, you could have come to us. You did not need to escalate." I kept my expression steady. I reported what the structure required me to report. The audit continued, each discovery cutting deeper into the certainty they once carried, and the team had only just begun tracing the decisions buried beneath their ambition. By Wednesday afternoon, the office felt split into those who pretended nothing was happening and those who watched every unfolding moment with held breath. I stepped into the hallway to print a set of audit documents when Talia suddenly appeared beside me. "Freya, can we talk?" Her voice was quieter than usual, threaded with urgency. I kept my tone calm. "What do you need?" She moved closer, lowering her voice. "This whole situation, it escalated too quickly. The timing was terrible. You know how stressed everyone is." I held her gaze. "Stress did not create unauthorized bonuses or hidden contracts." She exhaled sharply. "You blindsided us. If you had just come to me, we could have addressed everything internally. You made the auditors believe we were targeting you. You were targeting me," I said. "Long before Monday." Talia stiffened. "It was not personal. Restructures happen. Sometimes roles no longer fit. You called me unnecessary," I replied. "You said it in a room full of people because you assumed I could not fight back." I closed the folder in my hands, steady. I was not silent. I was patient. Her jaw tensed. "You are misunderstanding everything." "Maybe," I said, "but the auditors will decide that, not you." She stepped back when she saw two compliance officers approaching. They nodded politely before entering a nearby meeting room, where HR had begun interviewing employees. Through the doorway, I heard snippets stories of sidelined voices, dismissed contributions, patterns everyone noticed but no one risked challenging. By evening, the audit team's board filled with printed statements and verified threads. None of it relied on emotion. It relied on records, witnesses, and the quiet truth people finally felt safe enough to speak aloud. As the last interview ended, the room grew still, every line drawn, every line crossed, had been named, and Rayburn was preparing its judgment based on all of it. By Thursday morning, Rayburn's board had reached its conclusions. The announcement came through a formal video call, the kind where every sentence carried the weight of finality. Richard Camden spoke first. "Based on the audit findings, the board has determined appropriate corrective actions." My boss leaned forward, already defensive. "This has been exaggerated. I have led with integrity." Richard did not soften. "You are suspended effective immediately and referred for an internal investigation regarding unauthorized structural decisions." The words hit the room with a quiet impact. No one argued. Talia sat rigidly beside him. When Richard turned to her, she tightened her hands in her lap. "Ms. Reeves," he said, "your employment is terminated for policy violations and manipulation of internal reporting. Documentation shows repeated efforts to misrepresent performance assessments and conceal restructuring intentions." Talia swallowed hard. "I can explain, the records have explained," Richard replied. The consultant cleared his throat. "Our firm acted under your leadership's direction. The contract your firm accepted exceeded market standards by a significant margin," Richard said. "It is voided. Penalty considerations are underway, one by one." The structures they relied on crumbled in front of them. Then Richard addressed me, "Miss Adine Dalton. Rayburn recognizes the necessity of ensuring that governance is never compromised again. We are creating a new position, Director of Governance and Strategic Integrity. You are our recommended appointee." My boss looked stunned. Talia stared at the floor. I kept my voice steady. "I accept the role." As the call ended, colleagues approached me throughout the day, people who once spoke over me, dismissed me, or forgot I was in the room. "Freya, congratulations. You earned this. We should have seen your value sooner." I responded with professionalism, not triumph. The work ahead mattered more than their regret, and the path I would build from here had only just begun. On Friday morning, I unlocked the door to my new office. It was small, tucked away near the legal wing, with a plain desk and an empty bookshelf. Nothing about it was flashy, nothing announced power, and yet, for the first time in years, the space felt wholly mine. Richard stopped by as I set my files down. You will want to review the draft protocols, he said. They give you full oversight on structural changes. I nodded. No one should lose their job through hidden agendas again. Not here, he smiled. That is precisely why Rayburn trusts you. You read what others skim. You listen when others talk over each other. And you act when it matters. By midday, I met with Rayburn's senior leadership in a brief video call. They outlined expectations, transition plans, and the authority attached to my role. When they finished, one executive added, "This position exists because integrity requires someone who does not chase attention. You proved that." After the call, I drafted the first version of the new governance process, clear review steps, documented justifications, transparent channels, no more silent eliminations, no more buried decisions. Marcus stopped outside my door. "Freya, I meant what I said before. You earned this." I acknowledged him with a small nod. "We move forward with better practices. That is what matters now." He left quietly. When the final document was ready, I opened the approval portal, something I had operated from the background for nearly a year. Now, the authority was not hidden. It had a name, mine. I signed the governance decision with a steady hand. Power, I finally understood, was never about volume. It lived in discipline, clarity, and the courage to act even when no one is watching. And the life lesson that stayed with me was simple. Silence is not weakness. Sometimes it is the strength that allows truth to rise at exactly the moment it is needed. The moment my back hit the cold floor of the Baltimore Museum of Contemporary Art, I knew Caleb Rowan wanted to make an example out of me. 2 security guards gripped my arms, hauling me through the glittering crowd, while my manager stood tall in his tailored charcoal suit, laughing loud enough for donors to turn and stare. "That painting is mine," I shouted, my voice tearing at the edges. "I made it when I was 10 years old." Caleb's laugh sharpened. "She is unstable," he announced, raising his glass as if offering a toast. "Please ignore her. Staff sometimes get confused." Gasps flickered around us. A few guests whispered, their diamond earrings catching the lights, their champagne flutes frozen halfway to their lips. I twisted against the guard's hands, desperate to stay in view of the canvas hanging behind Caleb, the crooked blue strokes, the uneven yellow sun, the child's handwriting I recognized like a heartbeat. "Check it." I tried again. "Check the back." He never checked the back of the canvas, for a fraction of a second. The whole room paused. Even the quartet in the corner missed a beat. But then Caleb's smirk returned, slow and poisonous, as if he were savoring my humiliation. "Get her out," he said, "now." My heels scraped the floor as the guards pulled harder. A donor murmured something under her breath. Another one leaned toward Caleb, asking whether he was sure everything was under control. He assured them it was. He assured them I meant nothing. I kept my eyes locked on the painting until the museum doors swallowed me whole. My pulse thudded with fury. That canvas, my canvas, was priced at $300,000. And the man who discarded me had built his career on pieces exactly like it. Outside, the air felt colder than it should have. My breath shook. My hands wouldn't stay still. Everything inside me burned with the need to go back in, to make someone listen, to force him to tell the truth. But for that moment, all I could do was stand on the museum steps, replaying the scene that had just destroyed my job, my dignity, and the thin silence I had lived in for years. Earlier that day, I had no idea any of this was coming. The story you're about to hear is a fictional work created by the writing team at Revenge AITA. It draws inspiration from the quiet injustices faced by women who are overlooked, dismissed, or strategically silenced in their workplaces. This narrative follows a woman who refuses to stay invisible, reclaiming her voice in the one moment she was expected to fall apart. Every character, event, and detail is designed to illuminate resilience, self-worth, and the courage to confront those who profit from silence. Earlier that afternoon, I was moving between clusters of donors with a tray balanced against my palm, trying to keep my shoulders loose the way the training manual said. Caleb's voice crackled in my earpiece. Sharp as ever. "Marin, keep moving. Do not hover. Do not engage." "Yes, Caleb," I murmured, even though he rarely bothered to respond. I stepped around a pair of board members debating acquisitions and offered champagne. Neither looked at me. That was normal. The less they remembered my face, the smoother my shift usually went. I turned toward the center hall, then stopped so suddenly the glasses on my tray clinked together. It was hanging on the main wall, lit from above like something sacred. A crooked little house, a bright blue sky smudged at the edges, yellow sun rays spreading too far, reaching into the corners like fingers. My breath thinned. Every stroke was familiar, the way a scar is familiar. A woman beside me noticed I had frozen. "Everything all right? Yes," I whispered, my throat dry. Her eyes followed mine. Charming piece. Very raw. Raw. I painted that word into it before I even knew what raw meant. I stepped closer, my tray trembling in my hands. I could almost smell the paint from that summer at the East Baltimore Community Center, the room with peeling linoleum floors, and the instructor who let us mix colors even when we made a mess. I was 10 years old and trying to paint a place that felt like home. A small plaque rested below the frame. Artist unknown, $300,000. The number punched the air from my lungs. "That is mine," I heard myself say, so quietly it felt like speaking in a dream. A man passing behind me frowned. "Did you say something?" "No," I replied quickly, clutching the tray. Nothing. But inside, everything was shifting, recognition, fear, and the soft memory of my mother's voice. "If you ever doubt yourself, look at what you create." Marin. I stood in front of the painting until someone brushed past me. Then I forced my feet to move, though my pulse stayed behind, beating against the glass frame. How do you confront a room full of powerful people when you have nothing but a memory? I edged closer to the painting, gripping the tray so tightly my fingers ached. The brushstrokes felt louder now, as if the memory beneath them was trying to speak. I leaned in just enough to see the slight swell of the canvas where the backing hid what I already knew was written there. When I was 10, my mother had knelt beside me at our kitchen table, guiding my hand as I pressed the crayon across the back of the canvas. "Write it here," she whispered, "just for us, for Mom, so you do not forget my dreams, Marin." It was not something a curator would guess, not something an appraiser would invent. It was our secret, tucked behind the paint like a heartbeat. A wave of heat flushed through me. Someone had taken this from that little girl, and someone else was now selling it for $300,000. A cluster of donors moved behind me. And then I heard Caleb's voice, smooth, confident, meant to impress. "These pieces were abandoned in old community centers," he said. "I salvaged them myself. No records, no artists. Just raw brilliance waiting for someone who could recognize it." One of the donors laughed. "You truly have an eye for the forgotten." My throat tightened. Caleb had never set foot in the East Baltimore program where I painted this. He did not even know it existed. And his voice carried this rehearsed story as if he had lived it. I turned toward him. He was shaking hands, smiling broadly, lying without a single tremor. The tray in my hands dipped slightly. I straightened it and stepped forward. He looked up just as I reached him. "Marin," he said curtly, "you are lingering again. Keep moving." "No," I said. His eyebrows rose. "Excuse me, that painting over there," I said quietly. "It is not abandoned. It is mine." His polite expression flickered, just for a breath, before he covered it with a patronizing smile. "I think you are mistaken," he said. I held his gaze, feeling something inside me shift. What if the only proof you have is hidden where no one wants to look? Caleb stared at me for a moment, as if deciding whether I was worth the effort of pretending to be kind. Then he lifted his chin and turned toward the nearest cluster of donors. "Ladies and gentlemen," he called out, "you will not believe this." His voice carried through the hall, warm and booming, the way it always did when he wanted attention. A dozen faces turned toward us. My pulse beat hard in my throat. "This young woman," he continued, gesturing at me with a flourish, "claims that one of our featured pieces, the one priced at $300,000, is hers." Soft laughter rippled through the group. Caleb leaned into it, letting the amusement swell. "Marin," he said loudly enough for half the gallery to hear, "you are a server, a good one, usually, but this is delusional. It is mine," I said, forcing my voice steady. "I painted it when I was 10. Caleb threw his head back and laughed, full and theatrical. "Impossible," he declared. "Absolutely impossible. You expect us to believe that a child's doodle you made in some schoolroom is worth hundreds of thousands of dollars." A donor in a silver dress murmured, "She looks serious." Caleb snapped his fingers at security. "Remove her, she is disrupting the event." A guard approached, And Caleb leaned closer to me, lowering his voice enough that only I could hear. "You are done here. Hand in your badge on your way out." He didn't wait for my reply. He had already turned to reassure the donors. "My apologies. Stress sometimes affects the staff." The guard's hand closed around my arm as I was pulled across the polished floor. Someone behind me whispered. She recognized it too quickly. That wasn't acting. The whisper passed like a spark, too small to ignite anything yet, but enough to reach me before the doors swung open. When someone publicly tears down your truth, how do you make the world listen? I sat on the curb outside the museum with my apron still twisted around my waist, my hands shaking so hard I had to press them between my knees. People streamed past me, dressed in silk, velvet, and confidence. I felt stripped of everything: my job, my dignity, and the one chance I had to say the truth out loud. A voice in my head whispered, "Let it go, walk away." But another voice, my mother's, rose above it. "Do not forget your dreams." Marin. I wiped my face with the sleeve of my uniform. "She would not want me to quit," I said aloud, my voice raw. "Not now." My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from a coworker. "Caleb told everyone you snapped." "I am sorry, snapped." That was how he framed it. That was how he always framed anything he could not control. I opened the museum's website, scrolling past Caleb's smiling headshot. Below it, a title caught my eye. Director of Youth Outreach Acquisitions. My stomach tightened. That program had been the same pipeline where my painting disappeared. He had been collecting art from community programs for years, repackaging them as anonymous gems, while profiting off the stories he erased. I stared at his bio until my breath steadied. If he wanted to hide the truth behind polished lies, then I needed a way in that he could not dismiss with a laugh. I opened a blank email and began typing under a name I had never used before. Helena Merritt, private collector, interested in scheduling a viewing of the youth collection, budget flexible. I read it twice, then hit send. A few minutes later, my phone rang. Caleb's assistant sounded thrilled. "Ms. Merritt, we can arrange a private viewing for you tomorrow afternoon. Caleb is delighted." I closed my eyes, the tremor in my hands finally slowing. I was going back inside, but not as the girl he mocked. Would you dare walk back into the place that humiliated you, knowing the truth depends on it? I returned to the Baltimore Museum of Contemporary Art, dressed in clothes borrowed from my roommate, dark slacks, a fitted blazer, glasses large enough to hide half my face. The receptionist straightened when I gave the name Helena Merritt. Within seconds, Caleb emerged from the hallway with the kind of smile he reserved for donors and board members. "Ms. Merritt," he said warmly, offering his hand. "A pleasure. I hear you are interested in one of our most promising outsider pieces." His voice did not carry even a trace of the mockery from the night before. I shook his hand, feeling the old humiliation burn beneath my skin. "I would like to see it up close," I said, "especially the back." He blinked once too long, just as I expected. "The back. These works are professionally sealed. There is really nothing to see. I collect inscriptions," I replied, folding my hands calmly. "Hidden notes, signatures, anything that reveals the history. If the piece has nothing, then I will simply move on." His jaw tightened for a moment before he smoothed it away. "Of course, follow me." He led me to a private viewing room and set the painting on the table with practiced care. Up close, the brushstrokes looked even more familiar, like a language only the child version of me could have written. "Lovely, is it not?" he said. "The anonymity gives it mystery." "I want to see the back," I repeated. He exhaled sharply, then retrieved a small toolkit from the cabinet. As he loosened the nails, he tried to distract me with talk of provenance, market value, and collectors I had never heard of. I said nothing. The brown paper peeled away with a soft rip. Caleb lifted it, then stopped. There it was, my childish handwriting, my message, my name. He went pale. This proves nothing," he whispered. "Anyone could have written that." I looked at him, steady and unshaken. The lie was right there between us, uncovered and breathing. What happens when a lie is exposed, but the liar refuses to break? I walked out of the museum with my phone clutched so tightly, my knuckles hurt. The photos of the inscription glowed on the screen, my uneven handwriting, the message to my mother, the proof Caleb had hoped would stay hidden forever. I sat on a bench across the street and dialed a number I had saved earlier that morning. A Baltimore investigative journalist named Dana Hollis. She had spent years reporting on misused arts funding and neglected community programs. She answered on the second ring. "This is Dana. My name is Maren Kessler." I said, "I think I have something you've been looking for." Her tone sharpened. "Go on." I told her about the painting, the price tag, the lie Caleb fed to donors, and the message he tried to bury. When I finished, Dana was silent for several seconds. "I have received anonymous tips about youth artwork being resold," she said finally, "but no one ever had proof. Do you have photos?" "Yes, send them." I forwarded everything. A minute later, I heard her inhale sharply. "This is the first verifiable evidence I have seen. Maren, if this is real, there are more victims." "There are," I whispered. "I grew up in one of those programs." Dana suggested we meet at a small cafe near the Inner Harbor. When she walked in, she already had files pulled up on her laptop. "Caleb's acquisition records are thin," she said, tapping the screen, "but not thin enough." He listed dozens of works as donations from discontinued community programs. Most of them came from the East Side, the same center I attended. I said. She nodded. "Let's find out who else was there." Within an hour, we had tracked down 3 former students. One of them, a woman named Lila, joined our call from her apartment when Dana showed her a blurred image of another painting Caleb had sold. Lila gasped. "He covered my name," she said. "That is mine." The room felt suddenly smaller. The story was no longer just about me. If your truth starts a fire. Are you ready for how far it might spread? Dana's exposé went live on a gray Thursday morning. By noon, my phone buzzed nonstop messages from coworkers, former classmates, even strangers. Headlines flashed across local feeds. Youth art stolen and resold by museum director. Community demands investigation. Baltimore artist comes forward with proof. At the cafe where Dana and I waited, a man at the next table scrolled through the article aloud. $300,000 for a painting taken from a 10-year-old. "This is sick." Dana gave a tight nod. "People are paying attention." My hands shook slightly. Caleb will not stay quiet. He did not. By late afternoon, he released a statement through the museum's social media channels. "Maren Kessler," he wrote, "is a disgruntled former employee fabricating claims to harm my reputation. All artworks were acquired legally," Dana muttered. There it is, the character assassination. But 2 hours later, she received an encrypted message. No name, no signature. Just a file of screenshots from internal museum emails. She clicked one open. Caleb's words glared back at us. "Remove all youth program labels. Delete any reference to community origins. These must remain anonymous for market value." My stomach twisted. "Who sent that?" "Someone inside," Dana said. "Someone who has been watching him for a long time." She uploaded the evidence to the follow-up article. Within minutes, comments exploded, donors demanding refunds, community leaders calling for immediate action, and staff members hinting at more hidden misconduct. By evening, the museum board issued a public statement. A formal hearing will be held. Director Caleb Rowan is required to appear. When Dana read the announcement aloud, she looked at me with a steadiness that felt like a hand on my shoulder. "He cannot talk his way out of this anymore." I exhaled, the sound shaky and unfamiliar. The truth had grown too loud for him to swallow. When a powerful man panics, how far will he go to rewrite the truth? The hearing was held in a long conference room on the top floor of the museum. Rows of chairs filled with donors, journalists, and board members formed a narrow aisle that led directly to the table where Caleb sat. His suit was crisp, but the tightness in his jaw betrayed him. I took my seat behind Dana, close enough to hear every breath he drew. The board chair tapped the microphone. "Mr. Rowan, you are required to authenticate a selection of artworks from the youth outreach acquisitions. Please proceed." Caleb cleared his throat. "Of course. I am confident these concerns will be resolved quickly." The first painting was brought forward. A curator slid a toolkit across the table. "Please remove the backing." Caleb hesitated, then pried up the nails. When the paper peeled away, a faint name, half-scrubbed but legible, curved across the back. A ripple moved through the room. "That name was never in our records," a board member said sharply. Caleb wiped his forehead. "It must be a mistake." The second painting followed. Beneath the paper, A date from an after-school program glared up at him, the same program he had denied under oath. Murmurs rose. "This is not what it appears," Caleb insisted, voice breaking at the edges. The third painting was placed in front of him. When he opened it, a small sticker from the East Baltimore Community Arts Center clung to the canvas, a center he had once claimed never existed. His hands trembled. "Someone planted these." "Enough," the board chair said. "Bring in the final piece." My painting landed softly on the table. I leaned forward as Caleb removed the backing. The inscription appeared instantly, bright against the faded canvas. "For Mom, so you do not forget my dreams." "Marin?" Caleb's face crumpled. I can explain." No one asked him to. Everyone had already seen enough. "What do you say to the person who tried to erase you now that the room finally sees you?" Caleb did not return to his seat after the final inscription was revealed. He stood there, eyes darting between the board members and the donors who had once praised him. The board chair spoke quietly but firmly, effective immediately. "Mr. Rowan, you are removed from your position. You are barred from all future acquisitions, programming, and representation under this institution." A donor rose. "We expect restitution for every falsified piece you sold." Another added, "Your name has no place in Baltimore's art community anymore." Caleb opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Someone escorted him away, and the door shut behind him with a soft click that felt like a final verdict. Dana touched my shoulder. "It is over, Marin. Not everything." I thought, but enough. The board returned my painting that same afternoon. The curator handed it to me gently. "It belongs with you," she said. I traced the crooked yellow sun with my fingertip. "I want this displayed," I told her, "but at the East Baltimore Arts Program. And this time, my name stays on the front." She nodded. "We will honor that." A week later, the museum invited me to speak at a community forum on creative ownership. The irony wasn't lost on me, but I accepted. Standing behind the podium, my painting leaning beside me, I looked out at students, artists, and teachers from the neighborhoods I grew up in. "I was 10 when I painted this." I told them. "Someone stole it." And for a long time, I believed they stole a piece of me too. But the truth is simpler. No one can erase you once you learn to sign your name in your own voice. After the event, a little girl approached me. "I want to paint something big," she said. "You should," I told her. "And keep your signature where no one can touch it." The life lesson I carry now is this: courage is not loud. Sometimes it begins quietly, with one small truth you refuse to surrender, no matter who tries to bury it. If your past suddenly reappeared in front of you, what part of it would you fight to reclaim?